got the cylinder heads from the barn engine here, and I think it's about time to do something about these valve seats. They don't seem to be in terrible condition. Maybe got a little pitting on this exhaust seat here, but for the most part, they seem to be all right, just in a bit of a need of cleanup. So with any luck, we can just hit them with the 45-degree stone, make sure that our seat width is good. With this one, we might have to get a little tricky. I don't know, depending on how far we got to grind that down. We don't want to grind too far, because then we get into the problem for maybe the valve is sitting too far into the head, and therefore the valve height isn't correct on the other side. This is going to be a stock build. We're not getting crazy on this, like 5 or 7 angle valve jobs or anything. So let's clean them up. We'll have a look at them afterwards and see what we can do. Hopefully we don't have to put any new seats into these heads. Let's find out. We're going to need a few tools to do this operation. We have the stones here that we're going to grind the seats with, and we have our 60-degree or our top stone. We have the 45-degree seat stone, and then we have the 30-degree throat stone. We also have the mandrel that the stones are going to mount on. We have the valve guide pilot. We're going to need a whiteboard marker, a machinist ruler, and then finally we have the driver for turning the mandrels. So before we start grinding seats, we want to dress the stone, by which I mean we're going to resurface the stone so that it has a nice angle on it for when we're cutting. We can use this here to set the angle we need. We're going to cut a 45-degree stone right now, so we have it set at 45 degrees. We have this diamond cut tip, and what we're going to do is we're going to move the fixture down here and just turn that tip so it's just lightly touching the stone. And then we are going to use the driver to spin the mandrel and dress the wheel. Alright, so we're just getting ready to go here. First thing we're going to do is install our valve guide pilot into the valve guide. Now they are different sizes, so obviously we need to select the correct one for the valve guide we're using. And because our intake and exhaust ports are widely different in size, we have 2 different stones we're going to use. So I think the plan at this point should be we'll start with the exhaust side. We'll go through, clean each one up, move the pilot along as we go, and then we will switch to the intake and do those. With the pilot in place, we're going to place the mandrel down over the pilot with the 45-degree stone that we're starting with. And then we're going to use the driver. We're going to engage it into the star keyway on the mandrel, and we'll pull the trigger and hold it for about a 1-2 count, and then remove the driver. And before the mandrel comes to a stop, we're going to grab it and lift it off of the pilot. If we allow the mandrel to come to a total stop, what will happen is it will start to chatter and create an irregular surface on the valve seat. That one exhaust port we were a little worried about. We can see that even after having the seat cleaned up, it's got a little bit of pitting in there, so we're going to have to hit that one a little bit more. What we do need to remember is that every time we hit it, we make that seat a little bit wider, and we also allow the valve to sink down a little bit further. And every time it goes down a little bit further, it sticks out a little higher on the opposite side of the head, and then we could, in theory, potentially run into issues with both spring force for our installed height, and then possibly valve train geometry issues as well. Got these seats cleaned up, and what we need to do now is measure the width of the seat, by which I mean the distance from the inner to the outer edge of the shiny part that we cleaned up. So to do that, we're going to take our whiteboard marker, and we're going to make a few marks on the valve. We're using whiteboard marker because it's very easily wiped off, which will become advantageous. So we are going to place the valve into the guide. We're going to push down and apply a little bit of light pressure with my fingers to the top, and then I'm going to, from underneath, just turn the valve and rotate it against that seat. And I'm going to push the valve back up. I'm going to grab it by the stem so I don't wipe off the whiteboard marker. And then I'm left with the contact pattern on the valve. So we're shooting to have it mostly in the center, which we seem to have somewhat centered, but a little bit towards the outer edge. And then next we're going to measure the distance of that with a machinist ruler, and that will give us our width, and we can compare that to our specification. Now that we've got our valve seat widths measured, what we found on a lot of them is that the seat width is too large and the pattern is too close to the outer edge of the valve here. So to narrow the seat width, what we can do is take one of our two other stones and use that to grind away a bit of the seat. If we use the throat stone will sink down into here and start removing the inner edge of the seat, or we can use the top stone, which stays on top, and we'll grind away the outer edge of the seat. Because our contact pattern indicates to us that we have an issue with more contact towards the outer edge, what we're going to use is the top stone to remove a bit of the material, and then we should have less contact here and keep our pattern more in the center. So we've used the top stone to trim this seat width up a bit, and we can see that there's a different angle on this area here as opposed to down here where the actual seat contact is. We can also see that from the factory, there was not totally concentric valve seat in this, so we have actually improved this valve seat compared to what it's been for the last 30 years. And after having done so, we put a little bit of whiteboard marker on the valve. We've taken a new pattern and we can see a substantial improvement in the contact area. So we've got all the seats at the correct width now, and we've got our freshly machined valves, we've got our freshly ground seats. So what we're going to do now is we're going to mate each valve to each seat. So we're going to take lapping compound or valve grinding compound. We're going to put it on the valve here. We don't need too much, right? But enough on there. It's very gritty, so we definitely need to make sure we wash it off before we assemble this engine. We're going to place the valve into its guide, and then we are going to use the lapping tool, place the suction cup on the valve, and twist the valve. And that noise, we can hear that paste grinding the two and mating the two surfaces together. All right. So we can see the pattern in the valve from the grinding, and that's the area that both surfaces are contacting. All right, let's wipe that off. Okay, and we're going to have a similar surface on here now. These two surfaces are now mated to each other. So this valve now goes with this seat forever until the next time they get machined. So one done. As long as we've got a good pattern on it, we've got one done. We've got 7 more to go. After we've got all of these lapped, we're going to take the valves back out of the head, make sure they stay organized. We're going to clean everything to get rid of all the abrasives and debris from the grinding work, and then it'll be time for reassembly.